Welcome to the NBAV podcast. NBAV coming to you on January 30th. Second to last day of January in 2024, and we have a full 12 games of basketball to recap from last night, starting with the Clippers losing, something that they don't do too often. The Clippers lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell with a fantastic night, another great night, and he had no trouble creating shots for himself near the end of that ball game. On the Clippers side of things, only Kawhi Leonard really carried them tonight. James Harden, Paul George, neither of them had a great game last night. And that's enough for the Cleveland Cavaliers to be 9-1 in their last 10 games. Still, the NBA's hottest team. A really impactful, enormous victory for Cleveland as they continue to fight to stay in the upper part of the Eastern Conference. They're currently in 5th. And that's because the next team that we're going to look at, which is the Knicks, handling business in Charlotte, beating the Hornets. The Knicks, very quietly, have won 7 games in a row, and they're 8-2 in their last 10. So only one game worse than Cleveland. Cleveland 9-1, Knicks 8-2. Two of the hottest teams in the NBA, right there next to each other at the 4-5 spot in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks are getting hit with the injury bug a little bit. They have some concerns with Julius Randle on the shoulder. They previously had some concerns with Jalen Brunson, but he's come back and looked great. And they've had some concerns with Hartenstein. Now they have some concerns with the elbow of OG Anunoby. But the unit of the Knicks, the tough unit of the Knicks, goes out and handles business, still maintaining 4th in the East for now. Then you have Brooklyn Nets. And some people are overreacting to this. I would not. The Nets score 147 points at home, and they beat the Utah Jazz behind the comeback, the return of Ben Simmons. I would not look too much into this. I wouldn't focus on this too much. Ben Simmons has a lot to prove to move all of the doubters back into his camp. He has made too many mess-ups and disappointing games in the playoffs and in the regular season, and he's been far too much of an injury risk to really be taken seriously. So he has to do a lot more than be part of one victory for the Brooklyn Nets before we start to take him seriously as a player again. Then you have the Phoenix Suns getting back in the win category, going out to Miami and handling business, emerging with a 13-point victory over Miami. Miami just continues to have a really puzzling season. They're one game above 500. This is a team that made it to the NBA Finals last year, and now they're sitting at 24-23, 47 games into the season. Really bewildering for a guy named Jimmy Butler to have that sort of record, but nonetheless, they will be there come playoff time. Nobody should be concerned. Then you had the Celtics at home winning, which they always do. They beat the Pelicans. It was a close game up until the final minutes, but in the end of the game, the Celtics know what time it is on their home court, and they closed out the Pelicans with ease. You had Derek White hitting a 3 from the top of the key, and then the Pelicans fall asleep, and they let him take an identical shot to the one he just hit, and he hits it again. Derek White really coming up big for the Celtics there, but also Jason Tatum driving to the hoop several times for several easy buckets and dunks, whereas Zion Williamson was throwing the ball away. Brandon Ingram wasn't as impactful down the stretch, wasn't able to create the easy shots that Tatum was able to create for himself, and the Celtics easily dispatched the Pelicans in the final 3 minutes of that ball game. The Timberwolves get a really nice victory against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I would still be worried about the Timberwolves. I really would be. Yes, good job on the victory last night, but I would be worried because they got a bit lucky there. They had a really tough 3-point shot hit by Jalen McDaniels, and that was not a shot at the end of that ball game that could really be relied upon, but it was a shot that went in last night. Whereas the Thunder, they are a super consistent team. They're going to be near the top when it's all said and done in 2 or 3. but they're not totally complete yet. There are holes in this team. One of the holes that we've talked about before with the Oklahoma City Thunder is that Chet Holmgren on the offensive side of the ball really doesn't have a place in these close ball games at the end of the game. When he takes the ball and puts it on the floor and tries to create, the alarm bells are sounding in my head. They're going, get rid of the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball, because he's a turnover machine down there. He always dribbles it right into the top foul line area, and he turns his back to the defender trying to play a sort of far out post up game, and someone else tries to put their hand in and steal the ball, and it's just really a disaster. It's something that he hasn't learned how to do in the end of these close games. But they try to keep him out there for the experience, and they know that they might lose games like that. But it's okay. It's for the greater good. It's so that their team will learn, and he's really just a rookie. And then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is phenomenal, and he's super reliable in these games, and he gets to the foul line. Nobody can really defend him without fouling. He gets easy buckets. He gets some tougher buckets, but he's very, very reliable. And then you have Jalen Williams. They call J-Dub to differentiate from the other Jalen Williams, and he's very reliable as well. His shooting stroke from three has been super, super, super dependable. But outside of that, those are really the key players there down the stretch for the Thunder. Yeah, you have Dort, but there's no one else who you really look to create a shot, and that's the Achilles heel of this Thunder team right now, as we are 45 to 47 games into the season here. The Thunder are currently sitting in third. They're 32-15. They have more than twice as many wins as they do losses. But in the 15 losses, it's apparent that where they need to improve is they would need someone else to create a shot, at the end of games, because when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, can't do everything for this team, you need somewhere else to go with the ball, and you need someone to be able to do something that's outside of, hitting an open three-pointer. You need someone to maybe create a shot. And the answer to that problem is not Chet Holmgren, at least not at this point in time, maybe one day. Who knows? But a good win for the Timberwolves. They also had a couple of really, really big-time Naz Reid three-pointers, so Naz Reid is back playing well. And then you had Anthony Edwards, who's really quiet at the end of these games. Really, really quiet, which is worrisome. And you have Karl Anthony Towns, who just makes bewildering decisions left and right. They were able to overcome them last night. But he took a tough, flat-footed three-pointer from the left wing with a hand in his face. He took a couple other tough shots going to the basket with a really low percentage of scoring. But Anthony Edwards was able to make one really timely basket, which was a drive to the hoop where he just got the angle, went down Broadway, and dunked it. He wanted a foul, but didn't get it. So that was a good drive there for Anthony Edwards, but that was really the only big play he had in the end of that game. I think the Timberwolves were fortunate to win that one. The Thunder definitely struggled to score there at the end, outside of Shai, and that's the thing that they have got to improve. Also, when Rudy Gobert was able to get the ball down low, at this point, there's really not much Chet Holmgren can do. He can get blocks in transition. He can get blocks on centers who haven't really filled out yet. But like we saw when Embiid went up against Wemby in his 70-point game, when these centers come into the league and they're still, in their college bodies and they haven't yet filled out to the size of a 7-foot NBA star, they're going to get taken advantage of, even by somebody like Gobert. Gobert isn't exactly the Incredible Hulk with the way he looks, but he is, filled out compared to Chet Holmgren, who's just a beanpole out there. And Chet has got to, and it'll happen with time, and where he's going to be able to stop or at least impede on guys like Embiid and guys like Rudy Gobert, which he wasn't able to do last night. When Gobert got the ball down, though, he was able to just wait for his moment and dunk it. You have the Sacramento Kings starting a hot streak. They've won 4 games in a row. Last night, it was in Memphis against the shorthanded Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson trying to carry that team, but they only scored 94 points. So a 9-point victory for the Kings, 103-94. You have the Rockets just bombing out the Lakers in an upsetting loss for the Lakers, 135-119. And the Lakers coming off the double overtime victory against the Warriors, you just really wanted them to start stringing some victories together, but to no avail. The Rockets able to come up with a big-time victory. And there was one thing that I wanted to highlight from that game, which is if you look at the Rockets, Fred VanVleet, their point guard, their key free agent signing that they made this past offseason, he scored 3 points in the game, but he had 14 assists. Fred VanVleet is a player who can play in a multitude of ways. He can score, he can pass. But just to highlight the difference between him and the other guard they have on their team, Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore had 0 assists in the game, and he had 20 points. And this is the kind of player that Cam Whitmore is. It rhymes with his name. Cam Whitmore wants to score. That's all he wants to do. That's all he's going to do on the court, but he is a scorer of the basketball. He's a natural-born scorer. 20 points, no assists last night, versus Fred VanVleet, 3 points, 14 assists. So, I mean, how about the duality between those two guys? Cam Whitmore and Fred VanVleet, a 1-2 punch between a guy who can pass and shoot and then between a guy who's just a full-out scorer. Cam Whitmore, what a steal the Rockets got in the draft. Part of this young, intriguing team that blew out the Lakers last night, 135-119. You have the Wizards beating the Spurs, and then you have the Magic playing a close game in Dallas, losing narrowly 131-129. And the Magic did an incredible job. Kudos to them for staying in the game against Luka, where Luka was just hitting every shot that he wanted, and Hardaway was hitting everything. These guys are hotter than flaming torches right now. Luka, with his interesting little rubber band style headband that he's been wearing, seems to be good luck for him. He's just been absolutely on fire, and Hardaway as well. It's just absolutely ridiculous, the shots that they're hitting with what seems to be relative ease. And then you really have a great player. This guy is so key to their success. Derek Lively scoring another 20 points and 11 rebounds to go with Luka's 45, Hardaway's 36, and getting a nice 20 from Jaden Hardy. This team is really playing well right now, and the Magic really had to fight to stay in this game. They really had to fight. They were able to get a timely three-pointer from their main man, Paolo Banchero. He loves the right wing. The right wing was where he hit his buzzer-beater shot to send the game into overtime a couple weeks ago. He really likes that spot. But it was just a good job staying in the game. The Magic really fight. They never, ever give up. And it was a great game that they were able to stay in it. But, of course, the Mavericks able to win it last night behind sensational play from Doncic and from Hardaway Jr. And another game that they did without Kyrie. You have to start wondering at some point, is this strategy on Dallas's part? Do they play Kyrie when Luka's out? And do they play Luka when Kyrie is out? But it's more like they could try to push to get their guys back quicker, and they're just not, because they know that they're winning their ball games doing this split where Kyrie, as supplemented by the incredible play of Hardaway Jr., wins games, and then Luka Doncic, as supplemented with the incredible play from Hardaway Jr., wins the games when Irving isn't there. It's really incredible how they've gone throughout this season so far with that kind of split. They're 26-21, so not a sensational record, but I mean they're in 7th right now, and they are probably poised to still move up the standings, at least maybe get in front of Phoenix, who's a game ahead of them at 6. But they could potentially move up from 7 to 6 or 5 if they continue to play the way that they're capable of. Then you have the Denver Nuggets beating Doc Rivers and the Milwaukee Bucks 113-107. They couldn't be stopped down the stretch. Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, just a little bit too much there. And, another preview of what could be to come in the NBA Finals of the Nuggets versus the Bucks. So the Nuggets are able to defeat the Bucks again. And then you have the Trailblazers beating the 76ers 130-104, a 26-point victory for the cellar dweller Trailblazers, where Joel Embiid just isn't playing in games right now. They're saying that he's having a problem with his knee. And this is a massive problem for the Sixers, but it really depends on how you look at it. If you don't care about what seed the 76ers are going to be, because they're not going to be one. They're not going to get the 1 seed in the East. The Celtics are at 1. They're ahead of the Bucks by 4 games. The Bucks are at 2. And then the Sixers are at 3, but the Sixers are currently in a tie with the Knicks. So the Sixers have lost 3 games in a row. The Knicks, by contrast, have won 7 games in a row, and they're tied. Then you have the Cavaliers, who are only a half a game back from them. So you have almost a deadlock between 3, 4, and 5, the Sixers, the Knicks, and the Cavaliers. And if Joel Embiid isn't playing, the Sixers are going to continue to move down in the standings. The Sixers could go to 4, and they could be playing, either the Knicks or the Cavaliers, or they could be at 3, and they will play whoever the 6th seed would be come playoff time. But do you start to get worried? But do you say the Sixers need to play a lower seed in the playoffs in round 1? Is that the only way they can really win and advance to round 2? Or are they able to win and a matchup against the Knicks or the Cavaliers is something that they welcome? If I were the 76ers, I would maybe take my chances against the Cavaliers. I don't think I would want to face the Knicks in round 1. But the Sixers could move down even lower than 4, even lower than 5 if Embiid isn't playing. And according to the report that I saw, if Embiid misses another 5 games, because he missed the last 2, so if Embiid misses another 5 games, he won't even be eligible to be the MVP at the end of the year. So we'll have to see how motivated is Embiid to be the back-to-back MVP, or is he more motivated to just get healthy and hopefully be healthy for the playoffs? But right now, considering how many games Embiid has missed this season, it's hard to imagine that he could make it back for the playoffs and fight against the Bucks or the Celtics or the Knicks or the Cavaliers or the Pacers or the Heat and go in 6 or 7 game series, a couple of rounds back to back, and for his knee to actually hold up all the way to an NBA Finals, very hard to imagine. So things are really looking down and out for the Sixers right now on this 3-game losing streak. That pretty much rounded out the NBA action last night. I don't think there were any more really big headlines happening in the NBA currently. There was what we wanted to talk about the Rockets and about the Sixers. Not really too much crazy news going down. We have games coming up tonight. We've got 5 games of NBA action. On a Tuesday, we have the Jazz coming off of a loss in Brooklyn. They're just going to take a short train ride to Madison Square Garden, stay in New York, and face the Knicks, who have won 7 games in a row. We'll see if the Knicks, hampered a little bit by injury, can keep up their hot streak and continue the longest win streak in the NBA, going for an 8th consecutive tonight. You have the Pacers. They may be welcoming back Tyrese Halliburton tonight. They're going to travel into Boston, where Boston doesn't lose. So really tough welcome back game if he does return for Tyrese Halliburton. Sometimes it's hard when you have your star player out for a while. It's hard to integrate him back into the lineup and look like your old self instantly. It's possible, but very often it doesn't happen that way. And even in a close game, Boston's really tough to beat at home. So you'd have to think that Boston is going to get this victory tonight at home against the Indiana Pacers. The Lakers are going against the Hawks. The Hawks have had a tough season. Lakers have had a tough season. But Lakers, I know it's been tough. They had to play a double overtime game, put a lot of taxing minutes on their stars, and then they had to go to Houston, where they weren't able to win. And what was also interesting about that game against Houston is that you had D'Angelo Russell playing 41 minutes, and then you had LeBron James playing 37 minutes, and nobody else on the team played more than 30 minutes. So with the exception of LeBron, D'Angelo Russell played over 11 minutes more than any other player on the team. So if the Lakers are planning on trading D'Angelo Russell, they are riding him into the ground. They're having him play more minutes than anyone on the team by a wide margin. So are they just putting it all on him and then saying, okay, see ya, and trading him? I don't think so, but they really rely so heavily on D'Angelo Russell, and they're going to continue to do that in a matchup against Trae Young and the Hawks tonight. We'll see which struggling team can remain in the win column here. Lakers versus Hawks in Atlanta. You have the Raptors going against the Bulls. The Raptors have lost a whole bunch of games in a row, I believe 5 in a row, going against the Bulls. Bulls have been playing pretty well relative to what their expectations were. Seems like Zach LaVine isn't going to play until the trade deadline as the Bulls look to move him. We'll see if they're successful. He is the big ticket item right now. He's a guy who can play well on both ends of the floor, but he needs to buy into a system to really unlock the team success that's been eluding him so far in his career. And then you have the 76ers going against the Warriors in Golden State. 76ers most likely going to go at this one without Embiid again. If Embiid isn't playing, you'd have to think the Warriors can muster up the win here. Sixers have lost 3 straight, 2 of them without Embiid. So, I mean, or maybe all of them without Embiid. Not sure. I don't remember if 3 games ago the game was without Embiid. But Sixers going against the Warriors. Yeah, they all no, they lost the first game to the Pacers with Embiid. That was a disappointing loss for them. And then they lost the next 2 games to the Nuggets, and then they lost to the Trailblazers last night. So 3 in a row, 2 of them without Embiid. If Embiid's not there tonight, Warriors should be able to handle business and get back on track. Hopefully push towards making a play-in tournament run. Come playoff time, try to get their team sorted out. It will be interesting to see what happens with the Warriors as we near the end of the season, considering they missed a couple of games that had to be postponed. So where are the Warriors going to make up those games? Are those games going to matter? They really might. But what you might have happen is you might have the Warriors playing a couple of games less than all the other teams in the NBA, and the Warriors are going to be able to look at the end of the schedule by the end of the season and say, okay, we need to win this X amount of games in order to get this done. And they might have a very clear goal in their minds and say, okay, we need to win 3 out of the last 5 games in order to make it into the play-in tournament. And then they can go out and really attack that goal and do it. So we'll see what happens tonight with the Warriors versus Sixers. Again, we are NBAV, the NBAV podcast. You can email the show at NBAvenue. At NB Avenue, that's NBAVENUE at yahoo.com with your questions and comments. Follow us on social, on X, on Facebook at NBAV and NB Avenue. And we are your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.